Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We'll talk about this in a moment, this story in a moment. But hey, I'm Dave Valente. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. Great show we've got lined up for tonight. We're going to talk to a couple of Democrats from the state of West Virginia. One, a candidate for the West Virginia House of Delegates, and a committee member for the Democratic Party. So we'll bring both of them on. They're actually traveling right now, so excuse the no video and phone connection, but bring on Mac Alterman and whoops, there we go, and Nikki Lower. Actually, I think they're both on. I just for some reason not showing anything, but can y'all hear me?
I'm good. Still, well, Dave. Okay.
Hey, how's it going, y'all?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Good, good. So we'll talk about your run for office, Nikki. Nikki Lower, running for the House of Delegates in the state of West Virginia as a Democrat in an open seat. I believe the seat was held by Eric Householder, the former finance chair of the House of Delegates, Republican. So, Nikki, talk about, actually just introduce yourself and tell people about what you do in your non-political life.
Ooh, so what I do in my non-political life. So right now, I'm actually on my way back from my 13.5-hour Sundays. So I work at a community center outside of, so I work in Loudoun County in South Riding, Virginia. Yeah. So we are a community center, senior center, aquatic center, preschool, and event venue. So we kind of offer all of the above. That's what I basically do right now, as well as running for office. Aside from running for office, I'm also the parliamentarian for the State Democratic Executive Committee.
Oh, wow. So you are an official Robert's Rules of Order parliamentarian, right?
Yep.
Awesome. And I know, Mac, you are a parliamentarian as well, right?
Yes. I've actually been a parliamentarian for 10 years now.
Oh, my goodness.
I got my start in an organization, a nonprofit known as Skills USA, formerly VICA, for those who are over 30. And then after competing with that organization for 3 years and bringing back 2 national gold medals in parliamentary procedure and parliamentary debate to the state of West Virginia, I went on and I continued to serve with that organization and have trained over 50 parliamentarians over the last decade. One of them is now the Democratic Party parliamentarian, Nikki Lauer.
Oh, that is awesome. So, I mean, now I know you know a little bit of my history, and I've had a little bit of run-ins with people who abuse Robert's Rules of Orders in my life. So, I'm not a big fan of Robert's Rules of Order, but I think Robert's Rules is just a tool to help people run meetings.
I think we would agree that Roberts is better than nothing.
Well, yes,
if you have to run a large meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I think there's a common misconception among the public that they blame Robert's Rules of Order for causing problems, whenever the reality is we're trained as parliamentarians. The rules are a tool, and any tool can be abused, but the rules should also serve the purpose, the purpose of an organization, their living rules. So if a rule gets in the way, it is the organization's prerogative. It's the duty of the organization to cast out that rule to make their own business more efficient.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I say, I think it is the person that wields the rules and can weaponize Robert's Rules of Order that can make it difficult. But Nikki, let's talk about your race. So you are running in Eric Householder's old district for the House of Delegates. Talk about your race, why you decided to get into this race, and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, so originally I was from Grant County, West Virginia, about 25 minutes outside of Blackwater Falls. While I was growing up, I saw my mom have to pick between whether she bought her own medication or my dad's. I had to see her choose which bills to pay over putting food on the table. And there were winters where we would have to keep warm by the front of an oven because she couldn't afford heating fuel. And I really don't want to see that for the people of West Virginia anymore. I know I myself am not uncommon. I had served in AmeriCorps at one point, and I had done it was sort of a mentorship for at-risk youth. And this little girl was in one of my classes, and I would see her taking food home with her. And whenever I asked her about it, because I know she would barely eat, she was bringing it home for her siblings because that program had a sibling cap. So she would literally save some of her food and take it home just so she felt like she could provide that. And this is a little second grade child. And I really don't think that that's something that should be happening in the state. That should not be a burden on our kids' shoulders. But I mean, not only that, right now we are facing a serious poverty crisis in West Virginia. And that's a little bit of why I got involved. Like you guys said, it is an open seat. Both myself and Lisa have never run for office before, Lisa White being the person that I'm running against. So it is a competitive seat, and I think we've been doing really well at getting out there and knocking doors. We've knocked over 1,500 doors so far.
Oh, wow.
And just kind of talking to both Democrats, Independents, and Republicans and getting across that message.
Yeah, I mean that's the way to do it. I mean, with politics, you're not just representing one party or another. You are reaching out to constituents across the board to get your message across. So 1,500, how's that? Now that reminds me of another guest we've had on the show before. One Sammy Brown, who appeared in our Women in Politics show a few years ago, talking about her time in the West Virginia legislature as a Democrat and delegate in Jefferson County, and I feel sad that she lost her seat because there has been a scarcity of Democrats in West Virginia politics, especially lately. The Democratic Party. Well, let me give everyone context of the way West Virginia has gone. So back in I want to say 1990, there was one West Virginia Republican, either House bill, I think it was state Senate. One Republican member in the state Senate, 38 member state Senate. Um, by this last election, I think there's only a couple of Democrats left in the state Senate. The Republicans have a supermajority. It swung completely over the other way. How would you propose? How does the West Virginia Democratic Party, and this can be either Mac or Nikki answering this, how does the West Virginia Democratic Party reverse that trend?
Nikki's saying I should take that, so
All right.
I'm going to do my best. I need to flip my camera apparently. Bam. Hey, there we go. Hi,
There we go.
everyone.
Hey, Mac.
I am young. I am 30 years old. I'm a younger Democrat as far as the state goes. I believe we do that with an active party. And we've seen, you can talk about the international implications. I've got 2 degrees, history and political science, both geared toward the history of government, the rise and fall of democracies, well, governments in general. We've seen political parties be active on the ground, and we've seen them make gains. We've seen that recently in the summers in Europe. There's, of course, a lot of macro level things going on there, but I think you have to have a party that doesn't have the perception that it is crawling out of the gutter every 4 years, begging for money and asking you for votes. It has to be a group that is involved in the community. That's why 2 years ago, I recruited 58 Democrats across the state to try to run for the state executive committee. We won 37, 38 of those races. We have a working majority, not an absolute majority, but we all got together and we said the party needs a few things. It needs accountability. It needs to be able to see progress, evaluate progress, and then correct as needed. And then we came up with a philosophy of we need to be an active party. The first 2 years we've been working on the rules. We now have a fundraising committee that's dedicated. We now have actual accountability. Before 2022, we had 20% of members on the state executive committee were getting elected and they wouldn't even show up to a single meeting. So there was no leadership. You get on the state executive committee to put it in your obituary and then never go to a meeting and never give a proxy. Now we have an attendance policy. We cycle out people who aren't showing. We brought in representation from different communities. And now it's this idea of I'm working on an initiative to set up regional HQs that are permanent for the party to make a presence in the community. And we're going to try to subsidize and catch up with the Republican Party on paying for internships and scholarships for young Dems and trying to build up a volunteer base to go out in off years or non-years and meet people in their community and do community events and rebuild the trust of the community, because quite frankly, as a party, we've lost that. And that's why it's important to have candidates like Nikki, who's running on a message of for the working class, for the average West Virginian who has these stories of, her mom choosing which medicines to pay for or what bills to pay to take care of a disabled family member, or even knowing family members who have to work 2 jobs full time to the point that it quite literally kills them. That's a West Virginia experience that we don't talk about a lot because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we there are plenty of stories here. My wife is a teacher and had done Head Start teaching for a while, and Head Start actually makes you go to the homes of the children, and you know, seeing the condition of some of those homes and the number of children who are actually being raised by their grandparents or in foster care. And we know foster care is a huge issue here in the state of West Virginia. The lack of support for it. It's difficult to watch it, especially we're all in the eastern panhandle of the state, so it's we're actually one of the affluent areas of West Virginia, which you get into some areas of the eastern panhandle, it's not really the case. But we are influenced by places like Loudoun County or Washington County of Maryland with the money that's there that draws out resources and people that working in this area to those areas because we just can't compete in the state of West Virginia. Nikki, we got a question from Ken Matson who asks, "Who is your opponent in this race?"
Yeah, so my opponent, her name is Lisa White. She was originally from Maryland, moved here within the last few years. She originally worked for the Mooney campaign, and then her grandchildren her grandchildren had gotten her interested into politics, and that's how she got to where she is.
I mean, that's pretty much on brand for the whole Mooney system there.
Yeah.
Coming from Maryland and trying to get into West Virginia politics. So what are, if you had to highlight like three big platform stances for your race, what would they be?
3 big platform stances. So I believe the 3 biggest issues right now facing West Virginians is the poverty crisis, climate change, and the right to privacy. Right now we have folks that cannot pay for childcare. Childcare is such a huge issue in the state right now. We have people there was someone that took out $20,000 loan from the bank to pay their payroll. There was another one that had gotten a second job owning a small business just to pay their payroll and keep the folks that they are employing fed. It's an insane thought. Not to mention, like you said, we have one of the highest percentages of children living with their grandparents. We complain about test scores, but where are we stopping to think about maybe those kids, whenever they go home, do not have the time to study. They're busy taking care of their families. They're busy taking care of the siblings because their parents can't afford childcare, which is an absolute insane thought, because we have families who the nuclear family depends on some of these younger kids because we can't afford things like childcare. Climate change, we are currently facing a huge problem with the fact that it's hotter, drier, shorter growing seasons, and that's really putting our farmers at risk. They're having to sell off pieces of their farmland. And that's really a big problem in Jefferson County right now, are what they would consider solar farms. The fact that folks can't keep parts of their farm because they can't afford it anymore. They're selling it off to become solar farms. And we are not providing that, I want to say, assistance to these farmers to combat the differences in what has happened since climate change has really gotten more prominent. Not to mention the fact that we currently are looking at other states that normally never face severe weather conditions that are, and I don't think that West Virginia as a state is ready and prepared to deal with that.
Oh
And the
no,
last, yeah,
I mean, we've seen issues where, not just hurricanes, but, just weather systems coming through the state of West Virginia and flooding massive parts of the state because
yeah,
all of our towns and cities are situated close to rivers and because of, the coal industry, they're old coal towns and things like that. Just the impact of climate change and the weather changes. And you're right, in Jefferson County and even in Berkeley County where we're
mhm,
at, the lifeblood was once apple orchards, and
yeah.
we're seeing, we're now just kind of this little battery cell for these large data centers in Loudoun County because we're putting up solar plants, which is great. That's great for environmental reasons, but it's also we're just using that power to power these massive data centers in Loudoun County.
But we're also pushing our infrastructure to the brink. We currently are looking at a new housing development closer to Target in Berkeley County, and that is projected to not only push all of our services, our water and our sewer at risk, but also put every single school in the county at overcapacity. Just with a
Oh
thousand
yeah.
new housing and we are not planning it properly to the point where we can provide the services as well as a decent living situation for the folks coming in and the folks that are already here.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm on the opposite end of the county, so I'm in Falling Waters. We just put until they build this one down the road from us. But we're the largest housing community that's been put into West Virginia. The Overlook, which is both a housing community of 305 homes and an apartment community of several hundred apartments, and yeah, and this is the natural consequence of filling our county commission with nothing but developers
What do you
Yeah.
think is
contract.
some low-hanging fruit that the West Virginia legislature could do to address climate change? Let's say, Democrats win a majority. Somehow it happens. I like your laughter there, Mac. But let's just say that happens. Everybody oversleeps, and you guys are the only ones who show up to vote. What's something that you guys think you could do in West Virginia
Yeah.
to address it?
Well, I think one of the very first things that came up is, and this ties into a number of different issues. This past summer, we revamped our platform as a party, and believe it or not, the West Virginia Democratic Party platform is the second most progressive in the country. That's strange to say, given some of the Democrats we've put on the ballot, but one of the things that we talked a lot about was the effect of infrastructure, the stresses that are put under infrastructure and preparing for a 21st century infrastructure package. One of those things is talking about both protecting coal as a resource of national security and also providing for centralized or decentralized power production. The current framework of how the electrical system is provided for does not work in the mountains whenever you're cut off in a natural disaster. The large scale power transfers that we saw in the southern part of the state during the early 2010 derechos, there were communities in those mountains that were without power for 21, 28 days.
Wow.
And that's a
Wow.
long time to be cut off without access to your water pump and your well working. One of the things that we could immediately do as a legislature, due to the loose amount of coding and the high amount of centralized control the state legislature has, is we could take control of the building code and immediately mandate a decentralized power structure that puts, say, solar or wind on new developments that is directly in line and can be pumped out into the local community energy wise. That would immediately, if a tornado sweeps up the valley and cuts you off the main power line, guess what? You're not going to experience a cutoff in power because your local neighborhood has a Dollar General that seems to pop up in every field somewhere with solar panels on the roof. That immediately begins taking pressure off of coal as a natural resource, which I find very interesting that the Republicans in the state are always saying, dig, baby, dig. But once you burn coal up, it's gone. And coal feeds the steel machine. Coal is what feeds the American army in creating steel. So I don't see the point in burning up a non-renewable strategic resource like coal when we should be preserving it and we can create power in a safer, more efficient way. So that would probably be one of the very first things that come up if we were to take a democratically controlled legislature to bank. We would create an energy infrastructure fit for the 21st century.
So how would you, I mean, because I can automatically hear anybody who talks about coal in West Virginia, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, you're taking our jobs.
Not really. I mean, I'm not saying don't mine the coal. I'm saying that we need to protect it as a strategic resource. It needs to be a regulated commodity. And there are a number of resources and jobs that rely on coal that would not be disturbed in that sort of setting. We would just set aside coal as a specific use category, much like we did phosphorus during the First War and other chemicals. They would be regulated. It would just be the use of them would no longer be going to being burned up. I'm not saying get rid of those jobs. I'm saying reorganize where the output goes to or comes from.
That's
awesome.
That's interesting. Now, you know, another thing that I noticed that you didn't say, and I'm guessing that it's a West Virginia thing, but if you say you have the most progressive Democratic Party, and yet I didn't hear you guys say anything about reproductive freedom. I know Steve Williams, is that the gubernatorial candidate? Steve Williams proposed that Reproductive Rights Act. I'm assuming it didn't go anywhere. But I'm interested I'm just going to imagine that as Democrats, you guys are on par with, most of the sane people who believe that women have a right to control their own body. What do you how is that message resonating in West Virginia right now?
I actually am going to pitch that back to the candidate who's running because she listed her three most important platform positions as poverty, environment, and right to privacy. And that ties right into the last one.
Exactly where I was going.
Yeah, so the purpose of the last platform piece of mine is that it not only protects the government from interfering with women's health care, but it also protects a person's personal records from being accessed by an attorney general of any other state without a warrant. And I think that is incredibly important as we have 19 attorney generals right now who are trying to get out-of-state documents for folks that receive health care. And that's really scary. And I think the first step to combating that is to include that into our state constitution. While I was out door knocking, I've had Republicans look at me and say that they're voting single-based issue this year and basing it on someone's stance on reproductive freedom because they're pro-reproductive freedom, which is, I know it seems like a wild thing, but a lot of folks, despite party lines, do care about reproductive freedom.
It's interesting because I'm from Massachusetts, which, I mean, we refer to California as that red fascist state on the West Coast. But it's interesting because, again, it's a one-party state, similar to what you guys have. But a lot of times people will say, you know what, on this issue where I differ from the party, I feel like I can make a vote in this place because, if West Virginia were to go bluish enough to pass a reproductive freedom bill, it's not going to change West Virginia, right? You're still going to be a super red state. Do you hear people talking about that? The idea of you said, Nikki, you said that you're hearing people saying they're one issue. How is that manifesting in terms of what they say they're going to do this election cycle?
I mean, I think personally, just based on the conversations I've had, is that's what's getting them out to vote.
Interesting.
That by itself is getting them out to vote, getting them motivated. We've seen a huge influx on volunteers. And that has been absolutely such a blessing, but it's also such a shock. Because we previously didn't have as much support in the state, like for Democratic candidates that were active and ready and raring to go. And now we're seeing this huge volunteer base out in force, and it's just so exciting to see.
Yeah,
That's
and I think there's an extra history level to that because people forget that 8 years ago, West Virginia had an abortion bill or an abortion amendment to the state constitution on the ballot, and it was only a 1.8%, I think, was the division point
Wow.
there, and that is partially due to the fact that it was very, I'm going to say ambiguous, giving benefit of the doubt. It was very ambiguously worded. Had people known what they were voting for, I think a lot of those, at least a fair portion of the conservatives that did voted for it, would have second guessed it. So we're a lot closer state on this issue than people think. And what's really going to affect us, I think, come election day is the Trump effect. How many of those people go in and just do Republican down ballot without thinking versus how many Republicans do come into the ballot box and go, I actually do care about these issues. I care about the idea of freedom, liberty, and rights. And I think that there are going to be a lot of wives who, on November 4th, tell their husbands that they're getting up tomorrow and they're going to go vote. And come November 5th, they enter the ballot box and they may or may not vote for Trump, but they'll probably vote for protecting their own bodily autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I know that you all have been traveling. Have you gotten to where you need to go?
We're about 5 blocks. I decided to park at a 7-Eleven because there's a dead zone between here and our house, and I didn't
Oh,
want
okay.
to ruin your live stream.
Well, no, if y'all wanted to get home and get set up, and we'll talk about a story, and then we'll come back to you guys if you get settled. If you want to do that, we've got plenty to talk about. And when you get back, Daryl Perry puts in the question, talking about your thoughts on House Concurrent Resolution 203 that was proposed during the last during the special, and I'll put special session of the West Virginia legislature. But yeah, go ahead and get yourself settled, and we'll join you here in a minute.
All right, we'll see you in about 10.
All right. All right, Dan.
Let's talk crazy Trump.
Let's talk crazy Trump. Let's do this. Let me reshare the screen. So it's been an interesting night or interesting weekend with Donald Trump this weekend. This is the Drudge Report. Now, Drudge Report historically is a relatively right-wing news aggregator.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're very critical of government.
Yeah, I mean,
and that
Matt Drudge
seems like right wing sometimes. But
well, Matt Drudge has kind of gone back and forth, and I think he's a guy that will go where the clicks go. At one point he said it's not. He posted this thing at the top of his page saying it's not Democrat or conservative versus liberal. It's government versus you. But then like a year and a half later, he was touting Trump as this messianic type person for a couple of years during his administration. But yes, the headlines, earlier in the year, he was very critical of the Biden administration, which is, kind of on brand. But ever since Harris has gotten into this race, he has really trained a lot of his guns on the former president. This is a great picture of Donald Trump in Ronald McDonald gear. And the story is that Donald Trump allegedly is had a photo op where he's handing out fries, looks like it's coming out of a drive-up window at a McDonald's, but the McDonald's actually was a closed McDonald's that wasn't active. It was just a photo op for him to do it. Now, I've seen photo ops of people doing things like serving stuff out of drive-up windows and stuff like that. But generally, it's like a working drive-up window. Then, like somebody actually drives up and grabs the the it's just so asinine. Why are you doing the? Yes, Drudge did that. Drudge, Craig asked, did Drudge break the Clinton and Monica story? Yeah, that was his. That was his big thing that got him like most notoriety. In the '90s, he broke the story that I can't remember which news organization had spiked a story involving Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, and that's how it really came to light and got more traction. And then a relatively young Fox News glommed onto it, and other news organizations glommed onto the story. But yeah, that was how Matt Drudge got his claim to fame. Uh,
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know that. Yeah, well, let's talk about two things. First of all, let's talk about the continuing saga fascination of Trump and fast food, because who was it that he had to the White House?
Well, it was during one of the government shutdowns. I'll preface
Give him
it with that.
a little credit,
a little bit of credit, but yeah, he had it was a national championship winning football team, and he bought like shit.
Ohio State.
It might have been Ohio State. It may have been Alabama. I don't know, but brought just tons of McDonald's fast food there because they didn't have the White House cooks, or at least as many cooks as they normally do. But it's his thing though. I mean, he does like his McDonald's,
right,
and his Diet Coke.
It is. It's an interesting. It's an interesting thing. So he's got this fascination, but he's also a charlatan and a showman. So he created this photo op where he's wearing an apron, right, making fries and then serving fries. But as it turns out, of course, it's completely fake.
Yep.
It's at a McDonald's that was closed, and the other thing that was the real key is that there's a person there who's sort of assisting him, and that person has no acne at all. Clearly not a McDonald's employee.
Have you? Did you ever work at McDonald's?
I never worked at McDonald's.
I worked at a McDonald's once. It was.
Did you have acne when you worked there?
2 weeks. I don't know how I didn't have acne there, but the constant fear was busting my ass on the greasy floor. You just couldn't get the grease off the floor. There was just you could have gotten that stuff that would have taken. You could have put Dawn on the floor and it wouldn't have taken the grease off.
Did they put sand or any sort of abrasive on there?
No. Oh no. It was just an accident waiting to happen, and I knew it was going to be like when I'm actually taking the grease trap out. That
is the nightmare, right?
Yeah, pouring hot grease all over myself.
Exactly.
That was my nightmare. So I only lasted there a couple of weeks, and I was just like, this job sucks. So, but yeah, I'm not surprised that he worked at a closed McDonald's. The other big story that happened this weekend with Donald Trump is he talked about Arnold Palmer's long game. If you catch what I'm
That's a very nice euphemistic way to put it. I think we should pull the Ronald McDonald thing off. People want to see our big faces.
Oh no, they don't really want to.
So essentially, Trump's at a press conference and he's talking about Arnold Palmer, really in for no reason at all. But he's talking about Arnold Palmer, and he talks about the fact that in the shower, other golfers were amazed by the size of Arnold Palmer's manhood.
His putter.
Which is like just the weirdest shit to say.
Actually, no, it's more like a 3-wood, I think.
Well,
at least the way I was describing it.
Yeah, it's well, to quote the Austin Powers movie, it's like a baby's arm holding an apple. But it's just, there are these signs of Trump's dementia. And that sort of thing, the inability to be able to censor himself is pretty crazy. Ken brings up a good thing that he's not releasing his medical files. Kamala just did.
Yeah.
And
which was smart. It's puts pressure on them, and
yeah, and it's, I mean, it's, look, I think that the American people have a right to ask, and the president and a candidate has a right to reveal whatever they want to reveal.
sure.
But in the absence of evidence, it's fair to say we think Trump is has some mental problems right now.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
and here's the thing that like we heard for the first, I mean, like probably the last year now, the questions about Joe Biden's competence, and they're still valid questions because he's still the president, like
right.
he's still the chief decision maker.
Yeah.
Um, but those same people who asked all of those questions over the last year and a half aren't the ones asking the questions about Trump's abilities now. Just a little bit of intellectual honesty would be nice.
Right. It's
Because there's no reason to put this guy in charge of the country if he's
well,
cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
it is interesting that we have no competency. Now, what's interesting about it is that I've always wondered, in the armed forces, you have to do PT, right? You have to
Yeah.
pass a test every year. It would be reasonable, I think, to say the commander in chief has to pass those competency tests. The same thing
Well,
that
yeah.
a general would have to.
Honestly, let's do like a Battle of the Network Stars. Remember that old TV show? They have Battle of the Network Stars.
Huge fan of that show.
Loved that show. Well, I mean, you got to see all these starlets in bikinis. I mean, like
That was, I mean, its heyday was during the age of Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But you have that for political parties. Now, not that I really want to see Nancy Pelosi strutting around in a swimsuit or anything like that, but
I want
physical tests of fitness.
Yeah, Ken brings up a good point. The problem with the 25th, though, is that it's vague in terms of a standard. What I want to do is I want to give these guys, guys and girls, and I'll say every federally elected position, president, vice president, all the senators and members of the House, just a basic science and math test. I would say, simple things, some geometry, basic facts. What temperature does water boil at? How many feet in a mile? Convert these kilometers to miles, etc. Stuff like that. Just some basic things. How many planets are there? And I don't even want it to be like trick questions. So to be basic understanding of the world.
Yeah, you don't want to be dropping like, what's the capital of Kazakhstan? I mean, like,
no. Well, it's funny because I don't know if you remember Andy.
That was one of them. That was one of them for George Bush. Like they were talking about.
It wasn't Kazakhstan. They asked him who was the leader of Pakistan right after they'd had that revolution there, and he actually knew that they'd had a military coup, and the guy in charge was a general, and he said general, but he couldn't remember Musharraf.
Yeah.
But honestly, in retrospect, he looks like a fucking rock star now with an answer like that. Right?
I mean, it is. I mean, you think of like Joe Biden versus Donald Trump and what George Bush.
Yeah.
What Bush? I mean, Bush had kind of a simple, endearing quality to him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
right. There's the Aleppo thing, but it's also worth pointing out George Bush had a real learning disability.
Yeah.
George Bush is dyslexic. Okay. And, we have all these things about sort of sensitivity, but we make fun of George Bush because, he's not great on a teleprompter. However, George Bush was at Harvard with Al Gore and graduated with a higher GPA than Al Gore. And, Harvard has very bad grade inflation. But George Bush was not the mental midget that people portray him to be.
No.
He was a successful governor, speaks fluent Spanish.
No, that's Trump. Trump says bigly, and I think people have explained it as big league rather than bigly. But
I don't know.
Yeah,
a noble spirit embiggens The smallest.
Bilbo Baggins. Oh no, the
It's the Simpsons.
no,
Jeremiah Springfield.
yeah. So
Yeah.
looks like we got Nikki is on-ish, maybe. We'll bring her on here in a minute. But yeah, it's been interesting to see how the race has ebbed and flowed from Biden being this, mentally incapable candidate to Donald Trump being the mentally incapable candidate. Um, and how much of a factor this is going to be, the his mental incapacity going forward, because remember, it's no longer election day in America, it's election season. It's already started.
Right.
I saw
Actually, I mean, I voted already.
you voted. AJ's voted. I just saw her vote the other day. I'm going to vote on election day. But yeah, you don't have October surprise anymore. If you want something to have full maximum effect, you need to have like a September surprise. So
Yeah.
hey, let's bring Nikki and see there. Hey, Nikki. Oh, that's Mac.
Hi.
We got Nikki's still listed as well. There we go. Hey, Nikki, how you doing? Yes, Yale and Skull and Bones for the for
Yeah. I mean, look, George.
Bush
Well, so
administration.
that's interesting too. George Bush Senior, much more into that sort of evil mastermind bit, and they fulfill it with Cheney as Bush's vice president, because I mean, Cheney definitely is the evil mastermind. Bush is who he is, but the whole thing where United States declares economic war on China, devalues the currency so
China.
that they can steal all the money. Bush would never have come up with that. That's pure Cheney.
Yeah.
So
So
on the other hand, when you compare it to where Trump is, there's a very interesting letter that's going around right now. I'll share it, and we can share it on the page, from the creator of The Apprentice, who's a well-known showrunner, Hollywood person. And he talks about the fact, he's like, here are my notes. Here's what we said we were going to create when we created Donald Trump. And we made this backstory, and we made all this stuff up, the idea that he was smart and that he was actually rich and all this other stuff. And we said, here's a guy we can get that it becomes believable if we make all this stuff up. But, at no point in time, and the thing they said, the thing that we knew
that was Bush
that,
Senior.
Trump would be very easy to manipulate because he was 100% vulnerable to flattery. So that if you said nice things about him, he would do whatever you asked. And that was how they controlled him on the show.
Trump is essentially Ron Swanson, or not Ron Swanson, but Anchorman.
Ron Jeremy.
Ron Jeremy.
No.
Ron
Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy.
I fed you the Ron Jeremy.
Ron Jeremy is
so
a
funny.
That's a different conversation.
Talking about a baby's arm with an apple at the end. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
That is, it's, and so here's the thing: is that now we are in this place where the country is so incredibly divided that neither party is able to cross over and pull people in. Like, the more the Democrats say, this is it, the country is on the line, things are really going to go to shit, the more people are digging in their heels and not wanting to consider or think. They just want to fight. Yeah. And there has to be a point in time, because
it's about the lack of civil political discourse that we can't talk to one another.
It's about lack of civil political discourse, respect. And I know we talked about it. Was it you? Somebody else sent me a thing talking about, the people who are trying to work this out. But there's this thing, and I will say, as I talked about it earlier today, one of the easiest ways to lose an election is for your electorate to become complacent And so if you're a Democrat and you think you're winning, you never want to say that.
No.
You never want to admit, oh, yeah, we've got Michigan in the bag, so nobody needs to show up. And I will
Yeah.
say I was in an election like that in Massachusetts where the Republicans thought they had it in the bag. And in fact, in the last week, they didn't campaign. They ran a television ad in my congressional district. It was just the lighthouse and said, your moment of zen in this crazy political season, even though they had tons of money. And they lost by 4,000 votes because they got complacent at the end. So I don't think the election is as close as everybody seems to feel it is. I do think that it's Kamala. But I do think that in the state that he's going to win, Trump isn't winning by a little bit. Okay. In the red states, West Virginia, right? Kamala's going to get, what do you think? 12?
Well, so I've
votes?
said, no, I've said that with West Virginia that, and people have asked me why I'm going to vote for Chase Oliver for president is because if I had 10,000 votes to give, I could give them all to Kamala, and she would still lose by 40%. And that's the sad thing because I wish West Virginia was closer, but
so here's the thing, and you guys as West Virginians, your neighbors, like we're talking about, let's just say 70%, 60%. You think Trump will get? Okay,
60, 60, 65, 66, somewhere.
But we don't really think that 36%, that the 65%, not all of the 65% of those people can be morons. So where is the disconnect? What is the thing that allows people of good conscience? Because I really think that there are some people of good conscience who support this active force for evil in the world. Go ahead, Mac.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation this past weekend, actually. Are we allowed to curse on the show?
You are allowed to curse as long as you don't. No, I'm just kidding. Any curse word is fine.
I think it's something that we talk about in these hollers called bullshit. At some point, you have a political party that controlled the dynasty of the state for 6, 7, 8 decades. And they were being fed the public, everything's great. And then you watch the economic prosperity of the state dry up for things that were both inside and outside our control. And now we have a propensity as Democrats, because of what Dan said, you don't admit that you're behind because your base falls apart. We are an easily depressed base. So we've said, oh, we're going to do great. We're going to go do great. And we haven't been able to do great in 10 years. So now the public, who may have been more on the fence, views Democrats as straight up bullshitters. And that is a very, very difficult label to overcome. That is why I was talking earlier about we have to get back out in the community. We have to re-earn trust. That's the thing, is when someone bullshits you, no matter how idiotic the other option looks like on the outside, that person in your community is a bullshitter. So you're going to turn away from them. And I think that is playing a big part in why we're seeing a lot of particular West Virginians who know Trump isn't what he says he is, but Trump hasn't been in your neighborhood bullshitting you for 80 years.
Right. And I also think that, we're looking at the best, and by best, I mean worst, marketing and market studies that can be bought. Like, I know you guys are seeing, I'm in Maryland now, are seeing the same ads that I'm seeing. I couldn't believe I saw it during the Texas game. I saw an anti-Colin Allred ad, which was just insane.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
But the pronoun one, Kamala's pronouns
for they,
are
them, and not
them,
and us.
Trump is for you. That sort of thing. I can't believe that has a high. That there's a group, a demographic where that has a higher positive, because my wife is like, I would vote against Trump just for that, and she's much more of a economic. I mean, she's a capitalist. That's all there is to it. And so, a lot of the price control stuff and things are just very, very dangerous in her mind. But she looks at this ad, this sort of social policy, and she's like, well, I'm going to vote against Trump just because of that. I don't care about the economics. The economics, people complain about all the time, but who cares, right? It's not really going to change. But this shit is insane. And it's interesting to, at least to speculate, again, in a one-party state, what do you have to do to reach those people? Because you got to do it. And so, Nikki, Mac, you guys tell me, what are you doing out there? Because I know you meet those people every day.
And I think what you just described is what has summed up this campaign. You're talking about the difference between a suburban woman voter versus a rural voter who is looking at their personal history with the parties. What I think, though, at least with Nikki's campaign, that we've gotten back to is you've got to get back to basics. When you're going out to those rural voters, you've got to knock on their door. And that's something that she has excelled at. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about the stories that have came up, because
awesome.
We've seen people cry. I mean, we've only thankfully been flipped off once in nearly $2,000.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, because I remember Gary Johnson would talk about how he was governor of New Mexico for 8 years, and still most of the people wave at him with all 5 fingers. So that's always good. So, Nikki, talk about your campaign
retail
door to door.
politics. Talk about door knocking.
Sorry, I could not hear. Can you repeat that last sentence?
Yeah. Talk about your door knocking experience. Talk about how it is out there talking to voters, and how your message is getting out there.
Honestly, I think it's been so receptive, not only just because of the fact that I am door knocking and willing to talk to them, but the fact that it has been so long since the last person door knocked. There has been someone that I was talking to, they said they lived here for 15 years and never had someone knock on their door, like to talk to them as a person, to get their opinions. And these are older folks that can't, aren't as mobile, that can't go out to campaign events, that can't go out to a town hall that's busy. You have a lot of issues with accessibility in some event venues. So you really do have to go out there and talk to them where they're at. And it's just been a lot of, wow, you're actually out here talking to us. That's really a first. And I mean, even for Democrats, like I've had people look at me and go, wow, that's a Democrat. That's a first. And that's wild to me. Because you would figure that the first part of being a public servant is to go out and talk to the public. That's why I also think it's important after people are elected to have town halls, to have live Facebook lives, to let these folks talk to them where they're at. I've had people, part of my platform is I have guardsmen in my platform, and I had come up to this woman, she explained how her grandson was in the guard, and she just started crying. And I think it's really important to note that we do have a say over hazard pay. I feel like that should be an automatic thing for someone who's going out risking their lives domestically and non-domestically. And I feel like that's really important to note, and just talking and asking them what they think, because a lot of folks will go to their door and go, here's what I believe. No, I'm not here to sell you what I believe. You're supposed to be telling me what I should believe. Like I am there to represent you. So I need to know your opinion. And it really means a lot that people are willing to come out onto their doorstep, these private people, because most of the time people don't really like dealing with people knocking on their doors. I personally don't. I'm one of those people that are like, if you knock on my door, I may or may not sacrifice you to the old gods and the new. But it's the fact that they're willing to talk to me about that.
Yeah, James. It's sometimes you got to be careful where you knock doors in West Virginia. It can be kind of scary. So
as someone who knocked in the southern part of the state, like the stories of getting a shotgun pulled on you are 100% true.
Well, I got a shotgun pulled on me in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So when I was registering people to vote in 1989.
Like it gets back to that idea of privacy and the domicile and the castle. And one of the stories that I like to tell from her campaign, she spent. I'll go out and door knock with her from time to time, and this gentleman was very interested in oversight, government oversight, making sure money was going where it was supposed to, school bond levies, things like that. He talked to her on his front porch for an hour, a solid hour, and we had to sit down and go, man, this is a very passionate issue. This is a big issue, and it caused us to change our campaign. She now has a stance on oversight of levy money and this idea that ballot measures should be put to the entire general public. So move them off the primary ballot to the general
Yes,
ballot as their requirement. And that's the thing that the
absolutely.
public needs to do with their legislatures, is talk to the people who are running and see who responds to you, who actually listens and moves on positions. We talk a lot about pancakers and flip-floppers and people who will say anything to get elected. She didn't have a stance on an issue beforehand. That came about because of what she heard from her constituents, and that's something that I think differentiates a public servant from a politician.
Yeah, and getting ideas from your constituents is fantastic. I mean that. I remember the first campaign I ever worked. We actually, before he even announced his run, he actually sent canvassers into the district and talked to the people and got their, what are your big issues, and was able to craft his campaign off of that. The
It's sad that that's a novel idea in modern politics.
Well, yeah. So I mean, and it's also, the idea of walking the district. We've gotten to the point where we've like frozen our legislatures into a set number of people, and as populations expand, and I know that West Virginia technically has a shrinking population, but as populations expand, the ability to actually walk your district and the ability to meet your voters um, becomes almost impossible. And especially what right after a census, you have brand new districts. You've got people who don't know who their legislator is, who their delegate is, or who their senator is, and the ability to actually get into the field and talk to the people. That's why a big passion project of mine is to get partisan gerrymandering out of getting the redistricting process out of the legislators' hands and getting it into a citizen organization, so
It's
that
also
people pick their representative rather than the representative picking their people.
it's also really hard because the fact that I've hit so many, it's not a lot of folks don't realize that political canvassing is covered by and protected by a Supreme Court case on political canvassing. So you
Hmm.
can politically canvass in a no solicitation neighborhood,
Sure.
theoretically, but it's talking to the folks who don't know that. So it is also hard to find a welcoming community in rural West Virginia who has been fed the fact that there's no soliciting whatsoever and you can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we have moved through the modern age, we've seen West Virginia as a state that doesn't like to devolve into government, rely on HOAs for new development. In fact, you can't name a development in the Eastern Panhandle that has taken place in the last 8 years that was not an HOA. So these rules and this sort of civil decorum and civics understanding is being left to the wayside.
Yeah.
And we're losing that as an aspect of political discourse.
Yeah. Full transparency. I'm actually an HOA president. I joined it actually. I got on the HOA president because I was afraid people who don't know how to mind their own business
Dude,
would
this is a
become
Trump argument. You are
well.
Trump. I became president to protect you. Sorry.
Protect you, yes. Well, no, just so that people who don't know how to mind their own business don't get on the board and are out there with measuring tape, trying to measure people's grass length and things like that. So, but
Well,
uh,
well,
it's
thank you
not a
for
fun.
proving
It's
that
not a
there
fun
is a
job.
benevolent dictator.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I'm a member of a voluntary HOA as well, but it's completely voluntary, and we can't tell anybody
Ours
what
was
to
not.
do. We just live in a neighborhood where all the roads are private and they have to get plowed, and so we all just pitch in to pay the plow guy. That's our HOA.
So we did have the question about House Concurrent Resolution 203 that went before the state legislature during the special session, October special session, called by uh, our governor, our fun governor. So talk about the. Actually, I think I could quote.
Excuse me just a second. I've got to go pee and then throw up, and because the information is not pleasing.
Yeah, Governor Boss Hog. Um, so yeah, let's talk about
Dukes.
no.
I mean, it's interesting because, of course, Duke Energy being so big, and sorry.
Yeah, but talk about House Concurrent Resolution 203, which basically is a preemptive strike to deny the election of Kamala Harris to being president. So talk about your reactions to that that piece of crap.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that is honestly unconstitutional, to be 100% honest.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it. Honestly, there's so much to that I'm speechless. It's just absolutely wild. And I mean, even our Secretary of State has been avid in making it very plain and clear that this person does not support proper election ethics. And it's just been absolutely wild that we are somehow normalizing this as a state. And I just.
It's a damn shame when the governing body, the lead governing body of a government, throws out its most basic duty to elect representatives. It's a damn shame, and it's throwing away its own power, because if you're undercutting an election as an elected government body, how will you get anything done in the rest of government? Really? And I think that is a testament to this Republican legislature. They have consistently, the state Republican legislature has consistently dropped the ball on every issue, and then turned with a shocked Pikachu face and went, wow, we're a supermajority. How did that happen? It's just another chapter for those of us in the state that is a microcosm of what we're seeing at the national level.
And it's a damn shame that had to come from our neck of the woods. Because Ridenhour's over in what, Jefferson County?
yeah. Ridenhour, the lead sponsor of this concurrent resolution, I actually watched his campaign. He was elected in 22. This guy actually runs like a national politician. He didn't address any local issues in Jefferson County or really any statewide issues. He was all about the culture war, all about the battling wokeness, all that just drivel that really has. So like West Virginia now has become, because of the supermajority, we've got two parties within the Republican Party. You've got the guys who want to give away money, all the money to the businesses, and then you've got the culture warriors, and they're all subservient to Jim Justice because he's trying to be the next senator of the state. And you got Patrick Morrissey and all the clowning. Someday you'll have to ask me my opinion about Patrick Morrissey and some of the conversations I've had with him. But he
tell us about the time you guys shared a sauna together.
No, that has never happened. So I liken Patrick Morrissey to the kid that got bullied in high school and is now making it everyone's problem.
So you're saying to like the trench coat mafia in Columbine?
To an extent, yeah. But I mean, he's just exacting revenge on everybody now. So that's Patrick Morrissey.
I wish I believed him that smart. I said the other day, we were going through Pocahontas County in the southern part of the state, and there was one house out of the entire county that was just Morrissey signs. I was like, man, you have to be a really special voter to be excited for Patrick Morrissey as your candidate. Because I was
Patrick
like, I can think
Morrissey
of
is
no
like
redeeming quality.
My
Patrick
opponent's
Morrissey
one
is
of
great
them.
value mayonnaise, essentially. But go ahead, Nikki.
My opponent's one of those people who are, how do you vote for more? It's her. That's the type of person. It's her. But she's also the type of person that says that her heroes are Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. So
Oh my God. Wow.
She's also said that she's only going to talk to other legislators who already agree with her. And swinging that back around to the Republican caucuses that exists in House Bill 203, I have some personal experience with another co-signer of that bill, Mr. Nestor, who ran twice in two other districts prior to be elected in Randolph County, where he quite literally carpetbagged into that seat. To give you an idea of power chasers in the Republican legislature, who he got beat out by a Republican first, he got beat out with a Democrat second, and then he finally found a district he could win in. And now he's signing bills talking about the integrity of elections. I hope I'm not the only one who sees irony in that statement.
West Virginia politics is its own beast. It's well, let's circle to, because West Virginia's Eastern Panhandle. Coming into the primaries, we had the Senate president, who's essentially the vice or the lieutenant governor of the state, second in charge. We had several finance, I think both finance in the House and Senate. We had the judiciary in the Senate. And essentially with the primary, that all got wiped out. What the Eastern Panhandle actually had somewhat political power within Charleston, and now that's wiped out, and we're going to be facing a brand new legislature coming in January. So, talk about the changes there. I mean, because Eric Householder was finance chairman of the House, and now you're running for that district. There's not a whole lot as far as leadership within the Eastern Panhandle is left anymore.
Do you want me to take it?
I mean, you are right. The fact that Householder had been around for it was such a
Household
ironic.
name.
Yeah, household name. Yeah. It's definitely been an interesting power vacuum, to say the least, because I mean, you have two of us coming into the race that one is new to the state and I've never run for politics. So it's a whole new political climate when it comes to running for office here right now. You have people like Maria, who's running against Ridenauer. That should be, yeah. Especially given that resolution, like you guys were saying, it's
an embarrassment.
Yeah, it really has been. And I mean, there are so few Democrats right now in the legislature anyway. So it's just a matter of keeping the folks that were already elected, and trying our best to kind of spread the message and get folks who are brand new to running for office. We have so many brand new people running for office this year that it's just been it's been fun, but it has also been it has been the ability to delegate resources.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, in
go ahead.
regards to the legislature, I mean, this is an opportunity. We're going to see Republican turnover. So there's going to be a lot of new Republicans in leadership. There's also not a lot of Democrats in the House. So it's an opportunity for voters to say who can make the most impact in leading this area. I mean, whenever you look at the Eastern Panhandle, we have the great John Doyle, who, if you're hosting a barbecue that's open to your neighbors, I promise you he will show up for. But John's been in the legislature for 50 years.
Yeah.
We've got Miss Rucker, who he's running against, who is probably the most stable of the Republican leadership in the Eastern Panhandle. And I say that with the biggest grain of salt I think that's ever came out of my
Yeah,
mouth, as far as she's been here. She's a household name, but mentally stable, maybe not. So I think voters, particularly in the 96th, have a question of who is going to be the more effective leader for my communities. A parliamentarian who might be in a super minority, but who knows the rules and can be a pain in the ass, or someone from out of town who's going to be a backbencher in the Republican Party because she doesn't rebel rouse.
Yeah, she's
It's a
going to
question.
toe the line. Yeah, toe the
Yeah.
line of the supermajority. Now, Daryl asks about if you're elected, would you be open to introducing legislation about proportional representation, which is an interesting question because we just got rid of essentially proportional representation in some of our larger communities. So outside of the Eastern Panhandle never had multi-member districts. Well, we actually did have multi-member districts in Charleston, Huntington, Clarksburg, and Morgantown, and maybe Wheeling too. Yeah, we actually just got rid of it, which is kind of sad because I'm very much a proponent for proportional representation as well. But would you be interested in reintroducing that, or is that something that we kind of learn to live with for at least the next few years?
Honestly, in my opinion, I think that should be something that would be up to the voters. I mean, I have my own opinions also. I would support that kind of legislation, but I also don't think that it is a public servant's job to be spearheading something that has already kind of came through and went. But I would be more
Yeah.
than happy to look into it. It's just a matter of the voters have to support that too.
Okay. And we'll give you a minute here to talk about your campaign, but last question would be, what this is your first time running. What would you today tell yourself when you started running that you think you would want to do from the beginning? Like, what is the biggest lesson that you have had over your campaign experience?
Door knock early and don't freak out over radio debates.
Well,
To be completely honest.
if you want preparation for the radio debate, because I've been on WRNR quite a few times, just let me know. I'll be happy to help you prep for that. I don't know have they already done it yet, or
Nope, it is day after tomorrow.
day after
She's
tomorrow?
already
Yeah,
done one debate, and
Yeah.
she was sleepless the night before trying to prepare for it.
sure.
So it's that, and the door knocking thing. You have to understand, we started our general election door knocking in July, and we're still saying, man, I would give anything for just 3 more weeks, just 3 more weeks.
Sure.
And we started that early on our general election. That's not primary. That's not anything else. So she can be a bit hard on herself. If, as a campaign manager, I wish that she would sometimes just take a moment, breathe, and realize that it's going to work out.
Yeah, trust the process, but yeah, I mean, those are actually great points. You can never door knock too early, and yeah, the debates are one thing. Just remember that the audience for those are relatively small, even though that they're on TV and that they're on the radio. You're not reaching a ton of people, and even if you are reaching people, it's not guaranteed that they're going to be in your district. So, I mean, but again, if you want to reach out to me tomorrow to talk about debate prep and stuff like that, please feel free to reach out to me because I'm well familiar with everybody that takes part in that. So
Thank you.
yeah,
I do appreciate that actually.
yeah, and full transparency, I actually give to the Nikki Lauer campaign, so I'm a supporter and hope. I'm really hopeful with the number of young politicians we actually have in the Eastern Panhandle. When you talk about Corey Roman and the Martinsburg City Council, Mr. Martin on the school board, we've got good young politicians that are coming along that are Gen X got skipped, and we got skipped on everything, but the political mantle is skipped from essentially boomer down to millennial and below. So I'm glad to see young people taking up the mantle and running for office, and I'm glad to support candidates in the area that do the good things.
And there are so many across the state. I mean, over the last few weeks, I've just noticed so many of younger people running. The entire panhandle is for the House of Delegates is young folks. I mean,
That's
me,
awesome.
Troy Miller, Maria, Lucia. It's been so much. It gives me hope that we're somehow
That's
trying to
fantastic.
move forward.
Well, that's fantastic. So tell everyone about your campaign. How can they find you online? And if they're interested in donating to your campaign, I know at least we got one Eastern Panhandle person on this show. So, but yeah, let us know.
So I do use basically my Facebook because I could not figure out how to make a website to save my life this time around. I used to be really good at it, and then they changed all the website builders, and now I'm kind of like, uh. So you can find me on Facebook at Nikki Nikki Lauer Lower 4WV, and that is also my Act Blue. You can also reach me at my email, which is my legal first name. So it is actually Anika, ANIQUAELAINE @gmail.com. Or you guys can reach me at any point at 301-501-3226, which is just my phone number.
Okay. So Nikki Lauer for WV is the Facebook page.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
It's either Nikki Lauer for WV or Nikki for WV. Both should come up. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So we end the show with doing the CNN Weekly 5 Things News Quiz. So everybody who's been on the show or our fans who watch the show know that we do the 5 Things News Quiz. And let me hide the chat because it gets busy on the screen here. So there we go. All right, so we're going to check out the news quiz. The context clues. We got voting. Looks like the
Victoria's
Victoria's
Secret
Secret
fashion
Angels.
show.
Yeah, there's a fashion show and a launch of the Europa capsule. So let's check it out. Question number 1. So this quiz for people who have not played before, this is done on Thursdays, so it may not capture everything from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
We tried doing a Sunday quiz once, but it was too hard.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, we don't do the New York Times one, man.
Well, and frankly, Dave and I are sports guys. So Sunday, all we're doing is watching football. So anything that happened in the last 24 hours in the news cycle, we don't know.
Oh, yeah, and college football too. So,
right.
All right, question number 1. NASA launched a mission this week to investigate a potentially habitable ocean world. Where was this spacecraft headed? Neptune's moon Triton, Jupiter's moon Europa, Saturn's moon Titan, or Mars's moon Phobos?
Seeing as you gave it away already.
Yeah, I remember this for the intro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the Europa
Spoiler.
Clipper is what it's called. Yeah. So
There's
I'm a big space buff, so I know my space stuff going down.
I grew up actually within a stone's throw of the National Radio Astronomy Observatory in Greenbank, so space has kind of been the thing.
Yeah, I not the last time I went to New Mexico. Last time I took my wife out to New Mexico, we went to the VLA out in Socorro, the big radar dishes, and those you see them off in the distance. It's like the big windmills. You see them off in the distance. You get close to them; they're just massive. Or the perspective is really crazy. But you see those massive radio dishes off in the distance, and then you get closer to them, and they are humongous. It's impressive. Question number 2. Which climate pattern is expected to develop ahead of a winter and affect temperatures, precipitation, snow across the U.S.?
I think Mac
El
knows
Nino.
this, and I'm going to end up follow up with a Dennis Leary joke after this.
La Nina I am going to be the answer. Give the answer as that because these are very similar weather conditions to what ended up causing a derecho in 2010 that I was talking about that I was a part of, and my personal home was without power for 15 days. We were quickly switching from El Nino to La Nina that year. And that was a wonderful experience that I will never forget. So I pay attention to that.
La Nina is correct. I agree. And Dennis Leary's joke is, you got El Nino, La Nina. He's like, I think we're in for a lot more stuff because, frankly, it's a Latin American family. There's going to be more than 2 kids.
Oh my God. Actually, fantastic book. Check out Contact. The book's great. The movie is great too. It was one of my favorite movies as well.
Yeah.
But the book is vastly different than the
I would say
movie.
Contact is in my top 20 Jodie Foster movies.
That's a very specific list, Dan.
Well, I mean, number one obviously is Freaky Friday.
Top 20 made me think of Nikki's Hallmark movie list. That must be 100
no.
movies long.
But they're all the same movie. All right, La Nina is coming. Brace yourselves. La Nina is coming. It reminds me of another Saturday Night Live, the Weather Wrestling Federation. Probably the greatest Saturday Night Live episode was the week that the Monica Lewinsky story broke. And there were so many great skits on it, and it was Chris Farley dressed up as La Nina or El Nino, that he was going to fight some other weather system in the Weather Wrestling Federation. All right, question number 3. Which 2 battleground states kicked off early in-person voting this week? Georgia and North Carolina, Michigan and Wisconsin, Arizona and Nevada, or Pennsylvania and Florida?
Is Florida really a battleground state?
Thank you.
I mean, I know that Charlie Chris won there as a Democrat back before they had electricity, but
I had Bill Nelson as a senator for a long time, but he was kind of the last holdout.
Right.
Florida is where Democratic donor dollars go to die. Like, we just accept that that's why we don't get no money, because it's all got to be thrown at Florida as the sacrificial lamb.
Right.
No write-up.
Since Al Gore lost by 47 votes, it's been a wasteland.
And they haven't had a good hit in a decade.
Right. I think
it's Georgia and North Carolina.
I also think so, because I saw something about they're really trying to push right now in North Carolina because obviously of all the flooding and everything. That get going now. Mac agrees, and he's closer to the ground than all of us.
That's right. Question. So early voting began in Georgia and North Carolina as former President Donald Trump, when not talking about Arnold Palmer's.
Right.
I'm never going to have an Arnold Palmer again. I don't think. I'm just a little disturbed.
Do you know? So, I mean, obviously, you know how to make an Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know how to make a John Daly?
Isn't that just straight Everclear?
It's an Arnold Palmer with vodka.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just straight Everclear. Like, just set that shit on fire. Question number 4. What type of drink was recalled by Coca-Cola this week after thousands of cases were mislabeled as, that's frightening, mislabeled as 0 sugar? Apple juice, lemonade, orange juice, or sparkling water? I have not heard this story, and it's frightening because, as somebody with diabetes, you get something, you get, like, I'm an addict of Diet Mountain Dew.
I mean, here, the one that would be the most shocking is sparkling water.
Yeah, because it has no flavor anyway.
Right. And it should be 0 sugar already. So if sparkling label were labeled 0 sugar and that was a mislabeling, then it's pretty crazy. However, I'm going to guess that it's
your alcohol surge. Oh, surge.
I'm going to guess it's one of the juices. I don't know though. I'm hoping the audience can come.
Yeah, anybody in the audience? Help
James,
brother out.
James points out that we should have known that because Jimmy Carter voted in Georgia, which is
he made it to the election. I'm glad to see that.
Yep.
Just turned 100.
Pretty impressive.
You're right. Sparkling water has the concept of a flavor.
If nobody else comes up with anything, where's Janet? Janice. I haven't seen Janice all day.
Yeah, she sent me a message before the show, so asking if
me too. I think she was offended about that thing you said. Daryl says,
what thing did I say? So many things. Oh, Daryl says lemonade.
lemonade.
We're going with this one. We're rolling with this one. Correct.
Yay! Thank you, Daryl.
Minute Maid lemonade, which that's scary because lemonade is highly sugary, and if it's zero sugar, that can mess up.
It was mislabeled. I mean, there is what is the there is a sugar-free country time. I know that for a fact. It's made with that.
Yeah, I mean there is a zero sugar. In fact, I've bought the zero sugar lemonade before. So
yeah, but it's wrong.
All right.
So this is good. This is not fair because a lot of people don't know that you were in One Direction at one point.
Exactly. Like
now, do you know the story though of why that's their name?
Dan, are you doing a joke?
I'm not doing a joke. This is true. It's chosen because it's a double entendre. One Direction, wand erection. That's true. I'm not even making that up.
Wow. So I mean, I'll admit, I'm going to hell. I know I'm going to hell because my first thought when I saw the story was, well, at least we know what the One Direction was. So, yeah. So Liam Payne, tragic death this week, left fans and music industry reeling. Which boy band was he a part of? Which is Run the Erection. So,
David,
yeah.
Can you name a single One Direction song?
No.
You don't know you're beautiful. No, you don't know that one?
I don't. Can any of you name One Direction songs?
You light up my world like nobody else.
You light up my life like nobody else. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. All right. It's a sad story. Have they?
It is. I saw Zayn canceled his touring for right now.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine dealing with that and trying to do a show, but
Harry denied that he was ever in One Direction. I'm just kidding. I made that up.
All right. Question number 6. Which airline was recently fined a record $4 million for civil rights violations? Emirates, Lufthansa, Turkish Airlines, or Singapore Airlines?
Wow. I have no idea.
I don't either.
I'm going to guess Lufthansa just because of the Nazi thing, but
all right. I mean, that's a little bit of delayed justice there when you think about it.
Exactly. Well, I remember what they said with the EU when Greece was really struggling, like they had that mountain of debt.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedians, a guy named Bill Bailey in England, said, "You know what, Germany, if you pay off Greece's debt, we won't make any more Nazi jokes." That's a trade-off for it. But they didn't do it, so I think we can still making this check. Okay. Daryl says Emirates, and that seems reasonable to me. But I could see it being Singapore as well.
Well, I'm thinking Turkish Airlines because Turkish Airlines flies throughout Europe much more. I mean, Emirates does as well, but Turkish has a much greater presence in Europe.
But Emirates has actual slavery.
Right? Yes, the UAE does have actual slavery. I don't know about the airline itself, though. I would say another reason why is that Turkish Airlines is actually a quasi-European company, along with Lufthansa.
Oh, now see, I like that part of it. Emirates, who's going to punish them? What civil rights violations do they break? Emirates doesn't have any. So you're saying Turkey because they're part of the EU.
Yeah,
I like that.
All right,
it's a good guess.
That's Lufthansa.
I told you. Oh, look, and it is the Nazi thing. I forgot about it, but that's exactly what it is.
for denying 128 Jewish pastors from boarding his group, even though pastors did not know they were know each other nor that they were traveling together. Really?
Yeah. Right. The question is, how did they know they were Jewish?
Huh.
And the answer is the Germans always know. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, Dan. Oh, Dan. All right. Question number 7. 7-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady recently became part owner of which NFL team? The New England Patriots, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Las Vegas Raiders, or Green Bay Packers?
All right, Nikki, we're counting on you for this one. If you were going to guess,
Nikki knows this one.
Better her than me.
Would you guess, Nikki?
I'm betting on the Packers. I
It is
actually don't
not
know.
the Packers, and the reason why is because the Packers are a publicly held team.
Yeah.
They're actually owned by the city.
Fair enough.
I don't think Tom Brady would ever buy WVU.
It is Virginia.
As a
Sorry,
person who
Las
went
Vegas.
to WVU, I do wish he would.
It
If
is
there is
the
an
Vegas-
offer on the table as a West Virginian, I would be fine to take it. That's as someone who has a lifelong anti-Tom Brady
Well,
like.
So
Upset.
interestingly enough, I know Geno Smith played at West Virginia. Is he
Yes.
from West Virginia? No.
I don't think he was.
He was from Texas. He was
All
a
right.
Texas pipeline recruit.
Ah. Question number 8. Which country? Oh, I know this one. Which
I know
country
this one
celebrated
too.
Thanksgiving this week? Canada, Mexico, India, or Italy?
Nikki knows this one as well.
They recently
Not
just
gonna lie, I
started,
don't.
their hockey season.
Of all those countries, which one does this look like a plate that they might be served in that country?
I think spiceless white people food.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
You said
All right.
spices?
Mac, you got it.
Spiceless.
Oh, it's spiceless. It's Canada.
It is Canada.
What is that all about?
Yeah.
Yeah, Canada. So yeah, they instead of doing
Oh, Canada.
instead of doing
we stand
Columbus
on-
Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, they do Thanksgiving on the it's earlier. Their harvests are earlier in Canada as well. So, question number 9: the closest super moon of the year loomed large and bright in the sky this week. What was its name? The sturgeon moon, the beaver moon, the cold moon, or hunter's moon? Of those, the only
Beaver Moon is a double entendre. That's just saying you have your pants down entirely. And back.
Hunter's food.
I'm sorry. I have killed my political career this show.
I thankfully have no political careers. So.
Right.
All right, what's your guess?
Hunter's moon.
Hunter's
I
moon.
agree.
Yeah, that's the only moon I've actually heard of, so I'm going to go with Hunter's moon as
Right.
well.
I mean, Sturgeon Moon wouldn't make any sense unless we're
Yeah,
talking
well,
about
that is
Theodore Sturgeon, the famous sci-fi author. I hadn't
Maybe.
thought about that.
Yeah, October supermoon, the Hunter's moon, was the biggest, brightest supermoon of the year. Super Boss Grande moon. The lunar event marked the changing of the season. All right, question number 10. The Victoria's Secret fashion show returned this week after a 6-year hiatus. Where did the show take place? New York, London, Miami, or Paris? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't either.
If I were going to guess, I would guess New York because, right? I mean, that's all things fashion.
Yeah, New York or Paris. Those are the two choices for me.
Yeah, but Victoria's Secret, James says.
I want like London or Paris.
I mean,
That's tough.
it would be so expensive to do it in Paris.
They have the money.
Yeah, they do have the money.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a ranked choice voting thing going on here. Everyone's voting on Paris, like subconscious.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do Paris.
All right.
No, it was New York.
Son of bitch. Shit.
Eight out of 10. Are you familiar with the Jack song, Victoria's Secret? Goes, yeah,
Yeah.
nice, Nikki. It's hilarious. I know Victoria's Secret.
Okay, but I
And
work in a gym, and that is a bop in the gym. The ladies get so wild with that song. I'm
it's
telling you,
such
their
a great,
cardio out of this world.
it's a great song. It's got a catchy beat, and the lyrics at the end are that Victoria's Secret is that Victoria is a dude. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, oh no, I've heard that song. That's right.
Well, but right. I mean, I don't mean it like a dude and like a transgender way or anything like that. It's a big
No.
marketing scheme,
Exactly.
right? Which is pretty funny. Well,
Yes, Wu
once
Chang is for the
again,
children.
you guys have wasted 90 minutes listening to the political deep dive.
Yes.
Enjoying our guests. Tell us again how people can support you guys.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out my Facebook at Nikki Lauer for WV, that's also my Act Blue. Otherwise, you can catch me at like 10:30 to 11 a.m. on the WRNR channel coming up. That should
Nice.
be on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, make sure you remember to get out and vote because your life depends on it. I will pull that.
Right. It is the most important election of this month.
It's a huge
Yeah.
it's a huge, massive election in our country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck. I'm rooting for you. Sad I can't vote for you because I'm not in your district, but I'm rooting for you and think you're doing a great thing and doing the good work that needs to be done. And we'll have to have you on after the election so you can talk about your experience as well. Which gym do you go to?
Exactly.
I work at that is also what my community center, aquatic
Oh,
senior
it's a community
center
center. Okay.
preschool. Yeah, it's also a gym.
Awesome. So excellent. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, everybody be sure to tune in next week when our guest is going to be Liam Paint. Oh, no.
No,
Too soon.
So too
That is-
soon.
it's never too soon unless it's before it happens.
Right. Exactly.
That's-
Right. But it should be a good time. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
for
we're
tuning
actually
in.
going to talk about voting systems next time.
Like, click, subscribe, all the things. Share these videos out.
Fun stuff.
Remember, guys, that what you give is how Dave lives. He could have been your kid. So find a way to support the show. Support Nikki by finding her on Active Blue and send some
Yes.
money her way. And we'll keep track of all the stuff that's going on.
Thank you guys
Say-
again for having us.
Yes. Thank
Say
you so
good night,
much.
Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.